I have made numerous videos on Tessa Blanchard, her wrestling career, and the controversies and drama that have followed it. One thing I've always said though is that I could never see Tessa Blanchard returning to a major company again due to the controversies surrounding her and the fact it's been nearly 5 years and nobody's rehired her yet. But this past Friday on TNA Final Resolution 2024, the unthinkable happened, as Tessa Blanchard would make her return to TNA nearly 5 years on since she was fired back in 2020, and it's getting quite the reaction, and yeah, we just need to talk about it. So we're gonna do just that and more in today's video, so like the video and let's jump straight in. To anyone who's lived under a rock and you're hearing the name Tessa Blanchard for the first time, or you heard it for the first time this past Friday, allow me to fill you in on who she is. Tessa Blanchard is the daughter of legendary wrestler Tully Blanchard. She made her wrestling debut in 2014 and for the next couple of years would very quickly take over the independent scene, becoming one of the top women in the entire scene. She made jobber appearances for WWE throughout 2016 and then in 2017 would compete in the WWE Mae Young Classic, losing in the first round to Kairi Sane in what was good exposure for Tessa Blanchard. And after a couple more years on the indies and Japan, she'd make her TNA debut in 2018 and would rapidly rise up the Knockouts division to win the TNA Knockouts belt in less than 4 months into her run. She'd hold the title for about 4 months as well, as she lost it at the start of 2019. Despite the loss of the belt though, Tessa's future was very bright and she was already looked at as one of the best wrestlers on the planet, regardless of company or male or female. And she was still so young, so TNA seemingly had a big star for years on their hands here. Listen, I'm not exaggerating when I say during this time of Tessa Blanchard's career that people were saying that she could main event WrestleMania. That is a shout that I genuinely heard. But following her loss of the belt, instead of chasing the title again, Tessa Blanchard's career path would be drastically shifted, as TNA had a very ambitious idea for her and a way to maximize her star potential. As TNA would take Tessa Blanchard out of the Knockouts division and have her start mixing it up in the men's division, putting her in a program with Sami Callihan, which saw a match between the two main event Slammiversary that year in 2019. And Sami Callihan would win that match to start the story between the two, and then would go on to win the world title later that year. Meanwhile, Tessa would have her own side quests in TNA and more intergender matches and programs before she'd meet with Sami Callihan once again for a big rematch, this time for the TNA world title at Hard to Kill 2020 in a historic matchup and maybe the biggest TNA match in years. However, there's a good chance you know how the story already goes, as the day before this match, Tessa Blanchard would post a Twitter saying something along the lines of how women should all support each other, which got a quote tweet from another wrestler, Allison Kay, with major allegations against Tessa Blanchard of racial abuse from an incident in Japan involving another wrestler being spat on by her. This story and allegation was co-signed and vouched for in the replies by other wrestlers who said that they were present for the incident and that it did indeed happen, and many wrestlers would also start making their own posts regarding their own experiences with Tessa Blanchard. Tessa Blanchard would make numerous responses, always denying the allegation made by Allison Kay, and following that faithful night on Twitter, Tessa had nuclear heat on her heading into her big match the next day. But despite the controversy surrounding her, TNA would follow through and Tessa Blanchard would make history and win the TNA world title. A big moment for TNA for sure, but due to the controversy, most of the hype and positivity surrounding Tessa Blanchard was kinda gone. Her title reign was also interrupted by the pandemic, and Tessa wasn't able to appear for TNA when they did return due to travel restrictions, and after refusing to return the world title belt back to TNA, she was fired from TNA in May of 2020, and the title was vacated, and the Tessa Blanchard TNA experiment was over. Well, at least it was, and at least it seems that way until on the morning of Friday the 13th of December, the day of TNA Final Destination, it started being reported that Tessa Blanchard was set to be on her way back to TNA and that it could be happening as soon as that very night. It was reported that she'd be working with Jordan Grace, who was apparently pushing back on it, and some fans also noticed that Tessa Blanchard had been absent from CMLL, which is a promotion in Mexico she'd she'd been working for the last year and was a tag team champion for. And sure enough, CMLL that day would announce the vacancy of those tag belts due to the departure of Tessa Blanchard. And at that point, it was kinda all but confirmed that TNA were actually gonna be doing this, so out of curiosity, I tuned into TNA that night, a rare time where I watch a TNA pay-per-view live. And sure enough, the motherfuckers actually did it. As following Jordynne Grace defeating Rosemary, she was attacked by a masked figure who took off the mask to reveal herself, and of course, it was Tessa Blanchard, who after attacking Jordynne Grace would then cut a promo backstage saying she just reminded everyone whose name this company was built on. So yeah, Tessa Blanchard is back. Let's discuss it all. First of all, I remember there were actually rumors earlier this year, back in April, that Tessa Blanchard could be coming back to TNA, but nothing came of it and it faded away. So there's a chance that Tessa Blanchard and a return for her have been on TNA's radar for some time now. And I think that is quite a puzzling decision. Obviously TNA have faced a lot of backlash for Tessa returning to TNA, and it far outweighs any positive reaction to Tessa coming back, and it's just not gone down well at all. And her coming back is a very puzzling decision, not only because of the controversy, but also because the Tessa experiment was nearly 5 years ago now. It's kinda old news, and in the time she's been gone, we haven't really heard about Tessa Blanchard all that much. After she left TNA the first time, Tessa Blanchard's career quieted down, and she was very much out the limelight for a while. She wrestled occasionally for the next couple of years across lower level American and Mexican indie companies, and would be announced as the main star for the Women of Wrestling revival, which after just a few months she was gone from due to issues with her attitude behind the scenes. But in October 2023 she'd begin working for CMLL, who were one of the biggest companies in Mexico and outside of WWE and AEW. And she'd become super active in wrestling again, appearing very regularly as a full-time wrestler for CMLL. In fact, it was maybe the most active she'd ever been in her wrestling career, and she even won a belt for them like I said earlier. But despite all that, we really haven't heard all that much about Tessa this last year or so, and so even if you do remove the controversy, there's no hype surrounding Tessa's wrestling career, or at least not very much, and so TNA are really not gaining much from this signing. I'd say TNA have lost more than they've gained with this signing, because the heat that TNA are getting is immense, and surely they knew this would happen. Everyone could see that this would be a big risk, but I struggle to see what the reward is. Anyway, if you do want to find out more about what Tessa was doing in those years between TNA, I actually did 2 videos on that, so link down below, go check them out. But as for Tessa right now in TNA, it looks as though they're going full steam ahead with this Jordynne Grace feud, which also looks to be Jordynne Grace's final program in TNA before she departs, a very interesting way to have her go out. So TNA may be looking to get Tessa some momentum booking wise by having her go over Jordynne, who's one of the biggest stars in the company. I'm curious to see how this all plays out, but right now, I don't think any wins or good matches or building up of Tessa is going to get the fans to not reject Tessa being in TNA. But hey, time will tell I guess, and with her potential first appearance back on TNA Impact coming up this week, it'll be interesting to see how she fits back in. Regardless of how you feel about the Tessa Blanchard controversy, I think bringing her back is just a net negative for TNA. In a time where they've gained some goodwill from the fans and are selling out arenas with their best numbers in years, and they've got the WWE partnership, I don't get why they try to damage both of those things. I don't deny Tessa is a very good wrestler and will have good matches in TNA, but unfortunately, that just doesn't do anything for TNA, and with a history of attitude and backstage problems, she may not even last in TNA for all that long, for all we know. We may have a female Austin Aries on our hands here. But guys, let me know down below what you thought of Tessa Blanchard's TNA return and what you think of it as a whole, and if it was a good decision from TNA. I'm very curious to know. And like the video if you did enjoy, and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss a video for the month. I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye and keep on rolling.